begin by reading the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara. While seeing that all phenomena neither come nor go, you strive solely for the sake of all beings, Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig, at all times. I respectfully pay homage to you with my body, speech, and mind. The perfect Buddha's source of all benefit and happiness arise from having accomplished the true Dharma. Since that depends on knowing the practices, I shall explain the way of the Bodhisattvas. Having now gained this great ship of freedom and fortune so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of psychic existence, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night without distraction. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Attachment to loved one turns like water. Hatred for enemies rages like fire. In the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to avoid. Abandon your homeland. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When negative places are abandoned, disturbing emotions will gradually decline. Without distractions, attention to virtue naturally grows. When the mind becomes clear, certainty in the Dharma arises. Live alone in seclusion. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Family and longtime companions will part from each other. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness, a guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of all worldly concerns. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When one follows a true spiritual friend, faults will dissolve and good qualities will grow like a waxing moon. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Who can worldly gods themselves, imprisoned in samsara, protect? Therefore seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. The Buddha taught that all the unbearable suffering of the lower realms is caused by wrongdoing. Therefore never act wrongfully, even at the cost of your life. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, the happiness of the three worlds vanishes in but an instant. Strive for the supreme state of never-changing liberation. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When mothers who have loved you since beginningless time are suffering, what good is your own happiness? Therefore give rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate infinite sentient beings. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. All suffering without exception comes from seeking your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the altruistic mind. Therefore truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtues of the three times. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all their negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout a billion worlds, in return speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone you have cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status driven by pride treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished, always disparaged, gripped by disease, and tormented by spirits, never lose your courage, but take on the misdeeds and pains of all beings. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and revered by many, and are rich as the wealth of God himself, having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore, subdue your own mind with army of love and compassion. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that give rise to clinging attachment. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope of reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose. So wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by insight, grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the four formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other five perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the three spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner, but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about other bodhisattvas' faults, it is actually to your own detriment. Don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Concern for gain and respect causes conflict and decline in the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating. So abandon attachment to your circle of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb others' minds and thus diminish the practice of a bodhisattva. Therefore, abandon harsh speech which is unpleasant to others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When disturbing emotions become habitual, it is difficult to reverse them with antidotes. Thus, the soldier of mindfulness wields antidotes as weapons and destroys disturbing emotions such as attachment the moment they start to arise. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, always examine the state of your mind. Act to accomplish the purpose of others through constant mindfulness and awareness. This is the way of a bodhisattva. With the wisdom of threefold purity, dedicate all the virtue gained from having made such effort toward enlightenment, dedicated to clear away the suffering of infinite beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In accordance with the words of the holy ones regarding the meanings of the sutras, tantras, and their commentaries, I have written these 37 verses on the ways of a bodhisattva for those who wish to train on the bodhisattva's path. This composition will not be admired by the learned because my intellect is poor and my education is limited. However, I have followed the sutras and the words of the holy ones, so I believe these ways of a bodhisattva are not mistaken. Still, because the vast deeds of bodhisattvas are difficult to grasp by simple-minded beings like myself, I beg the forgiveness of the holy ones for the mass of my errors, such as contradictions and inconsistencies. By the virtue arising from this, may the beings give rise to relative and ultimate bodhicitta, and thereby become like the protector Chenrezig, who does not abide in the extremes of existence or peace.
Gendulayo Sanzalo, Doja, Pambo Japan, the Omichi in Japan, the Sansaja, Yamo, Rasisha, 사회남의 전화서 대해서는 동아지라 초진친 소면 먼저 이제 생전도 다녀도 나지는 다 초진님도 사도서 어떻게 이제 주도나 발란데 살짝 좀 가지는 뭐는 나니 삼바라도 특히 이거 건초 건들라마서 하데 이제 건초 섬데 서타가 가서 상제주다 견진선 누가 하래지 그때 건초 거지는 어때 누가 해 책도 봐가지고 야잖아 뱅그 말에 상제 좀 되지 그 송어더니 습게 나를 사이전도 라와 사이 나야까 그발 이제 송데 그래서 뭐 상제 좀 되지 그 공가데 딱게 딱 rolling 제래 되는 타토를 어떻게 rolling 동고 송요에 베티베라 그때 건초선 가리긴 누구도 건초선 다보 가리 제거도 어쩌서 내가 가래리 네가 가래리 대하고 고요리 드릴라마들이 거라게 두는 삼천도 소나 드릴라는 소당 가서 가고로 정말들이 다게 진우집에 빵을 진우집에 빵을 루시 대게들이 거기에 게두이치 봐도 선지 삼천 진우집에 너무마다 사치 탐자정에 드리테 이비집에 저방아 되나 드리다 선지 탐자라 다다 사초서 주종도는 somebody 로봇 동만 민족 버스 대화 탐색 용어레스 대화 용어들 가리데 사지가 땜바를 뭐지 사지 땜바 가리는 추에 까는 이게다가 송나는 요래 라면 송들 레좀제 네바니 참아들 라면 나게 똥 거요래 랑게 신이 말아 똥 거래 대들이 송 탐색도 요래 사지가 탐색 소용서도 와대요 네바지란다고 요래 대형들이 도마도 공을 그것도 대마 쏘치지 다진이랑 요버 가서 그것도 대마 쏘치 이피로 같이 해야 돼. 근데 도다가 대마 통도 다진 있으면 봐요. 대그들이 심지 탐정 고발을 놓고 요래 니딘을 놓고 요래 배태자들이 들이톡 상계에는 상계에는 바라는 게 총리 정도들이 다다 나바스는 내내들이 다다 라도 야바라 돈에 이동 저리 봐서 산지 그들이 라는 것이 수가 들이다 라는 것도 맞으면 내내 들이다다 대 셈만이나 리즈고 내들이 수바로 오래 비도요 말이 셈들 가리 셈지 탐들 핀고 가리를 핀고 되는 셈지 탐지 셈지 탐지 나디를 탐지 나디지 셔고 요래 나디데 사모 주도 반지게 나디데 또는 삼기가 나디데 또는 셈지 탐지 상제래 대비 랑가 나디데 메바 나진이 메와 하고래 나진이 메와 하고는 이 나진이 디치데 탐지 쳐봐야 뭐 어쩌지래 이라고 소화장 용티 지는 동네 나진이 니디라데 니랑 니치 니니지는 진짜 이런 코와 창거래 이런 니취답된 제임be 뭐 따바래 니디는 송아 탐진 제거람지 뭐 따바래 동네양 뭐 따바 대왕 뭐 따바래 니서 매력이 시대 진짜 상대나 니디 탑지 파 상네 니서 매력이 시 라마라고 찾아주겠다 니서 매력 셀다 하고는 내로 그랬더라 sakchi dokchi mengtago mangpota nomane rang sego nelong nese rang so hakoso o rang sego namka taveres namka chchi amdo ki shoame mendok o rang hakon muni sigi tamji ndata hakona tiri sigi tamji jigo yosare poa mlam taw dema taw phangthong dos semta namka chebe ba chang dos de manari peteso semta namka chebe ne chokro do ba yedi rang semta namka chebe ba kadu chana 들이 대가 다 배급에 대배 가면에 빨리 차차와차와던 뒤는 차로로는 톱스 셔라고 요래 배는 배때에 세배 심지 삼지 산지 연바데 잠도 따버리스 다다 사지 심지 니바데 잡주 카인 차롱 따버리스 심지 삼지 차롱 뜨자 온저 로버트 메제데 이 양탄형데 점치 고라 이 주탑제 싸고 요래 오늘 차롱도 가게 쇼거도 차롱도 두고 쇼거래스 세고 둘 세고 나면 차선때 니마게 쇼도 니메쇼 말이지 나가 삼중이 그 쇼거래 대 삼중이들이 니마다 그래 좀 니 소수 셈 초월 때 전당락 가건 때나 라는 우부 내려고 때서 다 체리도 우어서 쳐버려. 우부 내려고 때는 야 마치를 보고서는 보고서 마치 보고서 잡대치다. 랑동 야바라 도로 지로 랑나나 땅에 가는지 보고서 세면 지는 그 담비도는 요래 마치를 사탕 동반에 손에 떼다가 무슨 우부로 주에 사탕 동반에 짱만 걸어 터를 마디 짱그 속참마도 보고서 세면 손에 들 빠르게 보고서 소쪽 탑사때 로지도는 다 보고 로지도는 무보 소때 동을 대사가 랑소 루스당 들이 보고 소쪽 탑때 대사가 세대 가리 용과리 다 민기를 용과리 삼제를 용과리 삼제 지금 다 매파 차대요래 다 매파 차대는 대오 다 다면 독서 뭐시잖아 다 거대 예비 다 거대 예비서 들이 조사치고 저 계량을 들이 대르된 지디 수고들이 주고 기사 받게 내력대에서 생광은 내력을 입어도 마음이 줄였지가 많이 길이 기사도 요바 많이 소리들이 잡아 말이처럼 세고 내력을 하고 대르들이 상제라고 요래시 대르 상제 길이 자르려 말이시 사제 길은 믿어라 잘때서 뭐부터 당시에 사제 길이구나 말아리 자르의 상제에 미베라고 생긴 생이 두성 송거리라. 대가리고래 대박고 그랬지. 이치고 그랬지. 대박은 대박도 없고 나오는데 야가들이 힘이 좋아서 대박에 따따따 대박에 되면 봐도 대박에 양대양대 지나 들이 처음에 봐요. 이치제들이 이치제들이 라마센터랑 셈 예비 받으니 저런처럼 좋아하는 차서고에 대회들이 꼰초성 문이 누저 카기시 여가 많이 봐. 동물들이 개신이 ጨ같은 꼰초성 자기도 없이 참아라 차고서 대회를 개신이 짜치버리지. 섭지삼지가 맥다가 흥다가 너는 동의를 줘고 섭지삼지를 가려고 동의를 줘고 그러지. 동의를 줘고 개신이는 맞이나 더라랑 토토고요 말이지. 그 개신이 짜치버리서 좀 자르는 것이 쩍 캡스 그래지. 세토 그래지. 개신이 시바도 됐다 그래. 서로 동물이 들고 초군들라 말소한데 결마 석권소선 거기도 그게도 송답게 톡창제 대해서 참고해서 네 소말해.
So, Dhamma friends, we continue with the fivefold path of Mahamudra supplication prayer, and we have come to the third verse at the end, where we said that Mahayana mind is manifest in the Sangha's form. I pray to the Guru, the embodiment of all the precious ones. So, according to the outer Pratimoksha vehicle, it is said that within the Guru, the three jewels are complete. So, meaning that the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are complete within the Guru. And so then we cannot just leave it with empty words saying that, oh, with him all the three jewels are complete. That alone is of no benefit. But we need to know what it actually means. And the Buddha himself actually had said, do not blindly believe anything I say, but analyze my words, just as you would polish and cut gold. So what he ultimately is saying is that we have to discuss his words. We have to really analyze what is being said. And so now when we are saying within the Guru, the three jewels are complete, we also need to really understand what that actually means. We need to know what are the three jewels really, and what do they do, and what is their power. And so then we can say, so within the Guru's body, all the Sangha is complete. And why is that? So whichever path one enters of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, Yana, and the Mahayana, it begins with the Pratimoksha. The essence of the Pratimoksha, or the individual liberation path, is to abandon harming others entirely. And the body of someone who does that is representative of the Sangha. So what that means is that they have a commitment: I am not going to cause any harm towards others. And then for the Bodhisattva vow, it says, accomplish the benefit of others and its cause entirely. And so what does that mean? In the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says, the only medicine for the suffering of sentient beings and the only source of all happiness. So what is that? That is the precious teachings of the Buddha. And that is what we call the Dharma, the various scriptures, the words of the Buddha. And all of these words are condensed into the teachings on the twofold truth. And so for us, mainly the teachings on karma, cause and effect. So that is what all the gurus, the spiritual masters, express to us with their speech. So they have, first of all, understood the meaning of that and then are able to show that to others. So within the speech of the guru, therefore, the speech of the Buddha, the speech of all the gurus is complete. And in essence, the speech of the Buddha is condensed into the twofold truth. So in the beginning, for as long, before we have realized the ultimate truth, for as long as we still see a duality of self and other, to us the relative truth is most important. And that means that altruism is most important. And then when one has seen the ultimate truth, then one has realized that self and other are non-dual. And with that, one realizes that all sentient beings can actually become liberated from samsara if they become liberated from the dualistic grasping. So the speech is the Dharma. And then the mind of the guru is the Buddha. And so, sorry. So there's this quote that says, in the Yamataka, it says that when give completely forsaking my own purpose, may the benefit of others be spontaneously accomplished. Sorry. So the guru is someone who abides within the 3 levels of vows, and that is the guru's mind. And so it's important that the mind abides within the mind abides within the awakened mind. There's no benefit if just the body abides within those vows. So what is that mind of a Buddha? It is a wish to benefit all sentient beings. And so how can they be benefited? Well, sentient beings are a creation of self-grasping. So they need to destroy self-grasping. And self-grasping is destroyed through ultimately the realization of the profound emptiness. And relatively, it is destroyed through loving kindness. And when self-grasping is destroyed, all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. That is when they realize that there is no self, when they realize that self and other are non-dual, then all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. So someone who realizes that, a guru who realizes that, sees that all these sentient beings who grasp at a duality of self and other see things this way because they are in a state of mental confusion. And now the gurus themselves, having realized how things really are, then introduce those beings to how things actually are from their own experience. So they see that sentient beings exist because they perceive everything in a dualistic way. Everything is seen in this polarized kind of two way. And that is what creates samsara. And then all these dualistic phenomena are compounded phenomena and therefore impermanent by nature. And so everything is impermanent. Suffering is also impermanent, and happiness is also impermanent. And one realizes non-duality, that is called the non-dual primordial wisdom. And that wisdom has cleared away all dualistic perception. That is what is called non-dual primordial wisdom. Or it is called the view of Mahamudra. The view of Mahamudra. So the guru has realized this non-dual view of Mahamudra. But what it really actually is, it is just the nature, the true nature of the mind. There is no need to give it all kinds of different names like Mahamudra or Dzogchen and so on. What it is the Guru has seen the true nature of the mind. And the true nature of the mind is like space. And space transcends birth and death. And then the Guru considers that if sentient beings would realize that, they would all be happy. Then they would all see that their samsaric existence is nothing but a dream or an illusion. Milarepa also had said that when you realize that mind is indivisible from space, you have actualized the Dharmakaya. So, or to give another example of mind being indivisible from space, or it is like water and ice. For example, if you have very, very hot water and you throw an ice block into it, then it will instantly melt. So sentient beings are like ice blocks, and Buddhas are like an ocean. So now there appears to be this duality. There's Buddhas and there's sentient beings, but the sentient beings are just like the ice blocks floating on the ocean. The Buddha had said, beings are only obscured by adventitious stains. So when you understand that, you have understood the root of all the Dharma. So then, since sentient beings are like an ice block, how can we melt an ice block? An ice block must be melted through warmth. But it's the warmth, the heat of the mind, not the external warmth. The sun cannot melt the ice block of the mind. So the warmth of the mind is a mind of loving kindness and compassion. That is what will melt the ice block of self-grasping in sentient beings. And so that is something that you have to understand on an experiential level by looking at your own mind and really experiencing, feeling how your love melts away self-grasping. And that really actually stands to reason. For example, nowadays, science is considered as most important. And science looks at how things really are in their true nature. And so we can really see how that really actually is in actuality. So for example, there are many stories, for example, of how a mother completely abandoned concern for her own self in order to protect her child. And so when the child encounters difficulties, the mother forgets about herself and only thinks about how to protect her child. But for example, there was this story where a wolf attacked them, like a child, and so then another wolf then took actually the mother and took the child into her lap, and in that way was able to protect the child. So there's real stories of how mothers act out of love for their children. So the mother would even give up her own life force for the sake of the child. And so why is she able to do that? It comes from compassion. It is because of her love for the child, her compassion for the child, and selflessness. So when one recognizes that selflessness, that the lack of a self, one is said to realize the ultimate view, which is the indivisibility of samsara and nirvana. And that is the view accepted throughout all the four major lineages. Lord Jigten Sumgön also had said that the Buddha only showed the fundamental nature of all phenomena. And so that essentially is the true nature of the mind. And also he said that it is nothing that has not already been there before, and it is nothing that is sought anew. When you understand the nature of the mind, that is what we call the Buddha. The Buddha is not to be sought outside of your mind, elsewhere. Whenever you see your own mind, you see the Buddha. Also, Milarepa had mentioned that, and he said that do not seek the Buddha outside of your mind, but look at the nature or the characteristics of your own mind, and that is where you will find the Buddha. So the Buddha is not someone or something that hasn't already been there before. It's not something that you find anew. And so in order to find it, to see it within yourself, what do you need? What quality do you need? Mainly you need to have faith and trust. So when faith and trust arise within your heart, then that is where you will find the awakened nature within yourself. So, and that begins with the relative understanding, that having faith and understanding that all phenomena are compounded phenomena and therefore impermanent by nature. And then you continue to develop your faith continuously and increase your trust and your inspiration towards the Dharma. And ultimately you realize that the Guru's mind and your own mind are indivisible. And that is then when the ice block of your own mind has completely melted. Then once you've understood that, when you say the Guru is the embodiment of the three jewels, it is not merely lip service, not something that you just say, but it actually comes from an understanding of how the Guru, the spiritual master, really is the three jewels, embodies the three jewels. And then that's why you are able to see the spiritual master as so precious. Because the spiritual master is like the eyes or the heart of all sentient beings. So in brief, sentient beings need to become liberated from suffering. And how can they become liberated from suffering? It is through reliance on the spiritual master. They cannot become liberated just on their own. And that is why, when you understand that that's why the spiritual master is so precious. So even if someone might see 100 faults in them, and this very special quality, this one special quality, still makes the spiritual master as extremely precious and important. And so this is how you should think about it. So I pray to the Guru, the embodiment of the precious ones. So on the outer level, the Guru is the embodiment of the three jewels, which are the precious ones. Meaning that the Guru's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha.
lama tele yang za sam de yo de nga za wa sam yo re lama ye dam kharo sam di lama ye dam kharo sam di ne ni da tamabe de na o ta lama re te ye dam tam ke gon za te re ye dam mang bo yo re te kharo de ne ni je te kharo de ni pa mi ye de tam ye dam kharo ma re sai de ne de po mo ni yo re te tam je kharo re te da sam ge yo re si 동당군들이 예 갑자기 됐다고는 남자가도 됐다 랑 조금을 남단 제비니 요래 들이 때라다 라마디 꼭겐 꼴라마레 그다다 라마텔들이 공무선만하지들이 속성을 짜왔던 거지 다다 뭐 좋고도 라마들은 다 작성 거지는 짜왔던 또 라마레 꼴라마 송예당되는 다 로마가들이 나는 거 고도 남용을 받아들더니 소장하서 남가래서 거기서 탑락해 봐가더니 강나 강들 때렸을 동바데 소장하서 남가래서 거란 거와 뭐를 타서는 되더니 송 예담들 대상하지는 제도 탐들 라베 송 거요래 대상하 제도의 강의들이 계시 자원의 제름 계시 자원의 조름송 대더니 상하 남이요래 제도니 제 제름 장화의 거래 무엇은 전부 똑같은지 당봉 무엇 요반한테더니 좀 막다 왜저 대대들이 좋다로 조름했더니 예를 건 유본저 조름성을 조름 타도 생고 돌았더니 내용을 생고 총찰할 때 나시 좀 맞다 온 거 좋은 거리 소위에 다음지 내가들이 계속이라 뒤내지 라면 송이 연구를 소소랑 또 듣고요 말이 내가 라면 송은 라마스는 양용 대봐요 라면 양선 용로 송 거요 송이 다음에 통 가로래 가로들에 다 지르라 뭐 유탐정 가로래 대답을 쏜 거예요. 말은 가로시 받았더니 돈이 같은 거리 돈이 현재 송도 좋아요는 별은 콜로 된 좋다 돈이 콜로스도 돈이 현재 송 좋 탑 대화 전부에 얍 동반지 염송 sem그런 거는 제보가 감이었더니 사동이 야면이 그래서 제가 감이들이 따로도 가려나 부모님 제일이 수많은 연구요래 주탐제 중종제 주탐제 용내대 또 많이는 연구요래 그냥 가로시 봐도 돈이를 고고래 그냥 가로가 타서가 강래들이 주고 염치모래 주고 염치모도 그게 강는 나파래 남사 이거 많이 나시 제구만 못하면 남사님 제발 양조고요래 대르베는 거 양때는 돈이 이제 송족에 애들이 주지 땜들을 때는 고대 영한 좀 통제되다 가로리 너무 톡도 많이 넣어야지 가래 톡이 니지요 말이 나진이 매와라더니 나진이 매와하고 왔더니 나진이 동성 왔더니 톡 가로리 다성간이 그리 뒤질이 다시는 제부가 감이 그리 꽃은 그리라 말을 참고요래 이 꽃을 대들이 다 사자체보다 다 좀더 라면 남자고 고네 다 라마 족성거지 싹성거지라 동라면 어디 하고 차네 다 제비까지 다 꽃성거지 꽃성거지 제라 다다 라마 사자체보다 라마고 사자체보다 송구요래 동대
So according to the mantra yana, the Vajrayana, she mentioned in the previous verse, that is the practice of the Yidam deity. It is that the essence of the secret mantra is the Yidam deity. And also the fivefold path is referred to as the five essences. So now in the context of the Tantra yana or the Vajrayana, it is said that the Guru is the embodiment of the three roots, the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini. So an ordinary person might see it this way. They might think that, well, the Guru is the Guru, and the Yidam is the Yidam. The Yidam is the deity that we visualize. And then there are many different Yidams. And the Dakini, Dakinis are any female in this world, they're all Dakinis. And then within the various Yidam deities, there are male and female deities, and the female classes of deities are the Dakinis. So that is how we ordinarily think. So from the perspective of the basis, fundamentally, this is how it is, but then there's also the path and the result. From the perspective of the path, in the context of the path, of the three roots, the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini, the Guru is the Lama. And so before we mentioned the Guru is the embodiment of the three jewels. So actually it is also said the Guru is the embodiment of the 9 jewels. So which is the three jewels, then the 3 roots, and then also the 3 kayas. So now in terms of the 3 roots, and from the perspective of the path and the context of the path, the body is the Guru or the Lama. And then the speech is the Yidam. Because through his speech, the Guru explains the levels of Yidam deity practice to the disciple, depending on the level of that disciple's experience or their mental capacity. Because it is said that the Buddhas tame sentient beings according to their needs. So that is also why the Buddha gave different levels of teachings of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana. Because there are beings of higher, middling, and lower mental capacities. So the speech is the yidam, and the yidam deity practice consists of the generation stage and the completion stage that is taught to the disciple by the guru. So within the generation stage, what is the actual purpose of the generation stage? So it is that the generation stage, the purpose of the generation stage is to purify, also to train in the existence of birth, of the way in which we take birth. And then the completion stage is to purify the way in which we die. So the secret mantra path is twofold. It consists of the generation stage and the completion stage. So the generation stage purifies our grasping at a concrete, true reality, those thoughts that we have that things truly exist. And through the generation stage, we are transforming these concrete perceptions into illusory perceptions. We see things in an illusory way. And ultimately, then, the real essence of the generation stage is the completion stage. And in the completion stage, when we essentially practice the union of the generation and the completion stage, we realize that all appearances are like the magical display of the mind itself. That everything that appears and exists is illusory. So that union of the generation and completion stages of the appearance that is yet empty of self-nature is taught to us by the guru. The disciples cannot realize that on their own. They need to receive an explanation on that by the guru. And that is why of the three roots, the guru's speech is the yidam deity. And then the mind is the dakini. And so, again, ordinarily people think that a dakini is, for example, all the female deities, they're all dakinis. But this is not all the dakini is. The dakini, the meaning of the dakini is actually emptiness. Or like in the Chakra practice, for example, we say that Chakra embodies this union of emptiness and compassion. And so here, the quality of bliss and skillful means is the yap or the male aspect, and then the quality of emptiness and wisdom is the female aspect or the yum, and that is symbolic of the true nature of all that appears and exists, and that is clarity and emptiness. Things clearly appear, yet they're empty of self-nature. That is represented by the union of the yab and the yum. So also in the outer world, even though there are many sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara, they are all male or female beings, which are all a sign of that union. So the dakini represents emptiness, or the dharmodaya, which is the source of all phenomena. The source of all phenomena is emptiness. And that is what the dakini is. The dakini is emptiness, or ultimately called the Dharmakaya Great Mother. And what is the Dharmakaya Great Mother? She is the empty space. And then through the union of space, of the sky and the earth, then through the union of sky and earth, the world, the outer environment, comes into existence, comes into being. So, meaning that through the interdependence of various causes and conditions, samsara and nirvana both come about. But arise out of a single source, which is the source of emptiness. And that source is what we call the dakini. And that is the mind of the guru, is that dakini. And so why is the mind of the guru the dakini? Because the guru has realized non-duality, that self and other are inseparable. And that realization is the realization of emptiness. And that is why the mind is Dakini, because the Dakini is emptiness. So after 3 roots, the mind of the Guru is the Dakini. And then now on the resultant level, so this was the path, and now on the resultant level, the Guru is also the embodiment of the 3 kayas. They are all complete within the Guru. Also in the later in the Mahamudra practice, it says one should meditate on the Guru Yoga. And in the context of the Guru Yoga, one realizes that within the Guru, the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, and the 3 kayas are complete. So on the basis of that, one realizes the qualities of the Guru. And by understanding the qualities of the Guru, one understands that the Guru is the embodiment of the 3 kayas as well in the end. And so here that means in the end, in essence, that the nature of the Guru is the state of Mahamudra.
The custom drive sini custom telling what on what you around just our longer took you could let up a truck song sim sajajibo tipola tele there is sajajimo no three yena lama ko je kan de lama ko je yudi obati rang se with yellow tona the lama da si yemi charge de kochli jana de ko je de yore tete de barsi var the mugot mugote je malari be sumari longmi ma de bala chenji jidi lama mazera de muguda de wa shi de chesi ti che yongji kan mugude de ta do yi chi sem de ba la de muge go yumi muge dan bo lama ge shu yongji cha tang ye tang de chu de ping o ko wa ge dong ye ma ko wa ge dong ye da ta ta de ta de chu ba dong la de 교신이 탐제 용tin 예를 때는 교신이 탐제게 들리랑 그 이와 토만이랑 그 장화를 뒤바 차라스니 또 다다니 들인 적이 연락 들리랑 그 총방안에 통해서 데이터다 용도라 정치는 들리라고 제 강모들이 답을 매 봐서 사바서는 내일에 탐제 그거지 들리죠 그거지 되는 종교 저들은 남 샘디 야 마마가 내가 사도 쓰고 준대 임발라 세족 다서다 가가서서 나들이 가라 가는데 저것에 가자 가라 작은 거래 얘네들이 저거지 데이터다 가서 보니 그거 롱거 저거 섬지 찾아치고 거 와전이다 다모디 찾아치고 되라되다 그 제조나 거였다. 그 제들 뭐지 강제 그 용디지 제도실 용디지 전에 용디 통 로지 조배 당한 제이지 이거를 뭐지 용디 통 로지 돌이 당한 거리 오 지양 마마 장공을 받아서다 라마 개비신이 탐지 지양 마마 장공을 때리 다 다음들이 제가 탐지도 못함 저거 대는 것들 라마 개비신이 탐지 소나리 대지와 마마가 내장 호나 메라 다다도 참아들이 데이터 사직의 추적으로 꼬리오래 참아들로 차트고 차트고 요 말이 얘는 마토로 또서도 로알 독터는 동그래서 기바 요리 다마다 니가 이제 다다마다 니가 쫓거래 쫓거래 세 대식도 뭐 3만 요리 세 대식도 3만 요는 또다 마토가 건 초당 차런 거 제발 차론도 동네 요리 저는 약속을 동네요 말 때다 답을 탑절라 술동이요 말 약속을 다 들었다 강리 서로 가 봐봤는데 들린다고 또다 뉴모마 탑절라 살시게 때도 동네요 말이 다 무슨요 말 와서 배롱만 보세요 무슨 동네 돌들 미지 무슨 종강을 대나 냠도 민냠도 요는 동네 미지 카카리 같이 하 저기 가고서 빼하고서 그대요 같이 랑소체 그 빼대다고 돼. 렉다 말이 치바티다고 선대적인 보는. 얘네들이 렉다 말 렉이 용띠 제다고 들라마 개신이 용띠 통에 오, 다 소소라니 동네를 돌도 요치. 소탁랑이. 오, 델레티니 다 라니 동네 돌고 싸나? 라니 찍고 싸우잖아. 델레티 랑데 따로 내들이 좋다고만도 지핑을 놓고 받을 상속 셈지. 토망인 정지, 토망 소탁을 셈지. 이 상생고 셈지. 상생고 셈지를 이 상속 셈지 줄지나. 이 상하 동성 다지니 메바 동도. 데이터 사람을 봐 데이터 동도냐? 다 델레티서 다들 용띠세 돈. 오, 데이터도 돈 라마 계획진이 톱고도. 라마 계획진이 다 명미가 맺다고 명미 명다고 해듯이 대랑 속하고 싶어 말이 동대도 라는 게 나서는 저 때도 세트고 요래 다단 지금 동에 요 하고 요 참은 동에 뭐는 아소치는 강마망을 하지 동이 대를 더 탑됐다 붙여도 따요 말이지 야 대르티네 드리다다 용띠 돈을 더 대라티네 더 용띠 돈을 대바지 로지 조배 당한 진도 다 산재 것은 용띠들 로지 조배 당한 진 용띠 돈을 대바 대들 당하는 동에 돈도 요사 대세바래 들이 샘태 통다 나와 삼바들 다들 람들라고 태통매가 차나 들이라고 삼바도 그 요리 대소한테 제제들 땀내서 와미 바래 세 낭삼용 때 삼용 때 됐다 람바도 계획이 산지 초성 거성 무슨 창도 상향다도 잖아 들이라마 계획이 사마라더니라고 라는 강락가들 때니 죽으면 그때 장로까지 돼 가래는 개념 바지니 따치버리 삽절이 됐다고 생각하니 있지요 거기 뒤에는 들이 생고 고탄 보듯이 요래 소소하니 동네 tor 소소하니 동네 tor 뒤에는 tor 남도 톡고요 배 뒤에다고 뒤에는 들이 먹으라고 요래 들이 끼면 먹으지 들이 끼면 이제 먹으지나 대랑 그 생냥서 나오나 들이랑 그 생고 내로 타니고 차오나 랑 그 생고 내로 땅 들이 산지에 땅 말씀 지니가 대서 문제가 요래 생고 내로 통나 다음에 도로 다음에 생기는 이제 세매받지 요래 이제 세매받으니 너무 생도 산지는 제가 이래지 바들 이제 제가 생기는 제가 차고 요래 다독 대들이 잘 있으면 봐 차도 대서 생기 동세 봐라 그 산지 거선데 대답을 가사가 따와 가래리들 생기도 좀 봤다고 그거 요래지 이 송수는 센다 해당 차도성을 꼭 말해야지 대답을 맞지 차도 다 대답을 던지지 다 노아를 줬던 동안 유목도 걸고 대답해서 퍼바냐면 이세디 동그를 대답을 무슨 소리 들을 탑대 냥들은 다 랑랑의 팽개도 이는 은혜 팽개도 없지 랑그 가래그 랑은 유목을 쭉 매봤다는 생기 유목을 매봤다는 동안도 랑이 엘베바레자 하고도 들라방 거니 거지 먹고 쭈미 먹지 쭈마고를 먹지 다 되지요 요래 뒤에 가래가 송들 제 말이 밖에 가보발 송무라 가보밖에 내 생기 동세가 쭉 강래해서 말이 봐주지 시랑게 파기 나라 따따따를 많이 봐 나라 파기 나라 사진 군제 두시서 샤롱아 답들이 참 생기 동세가 또 인성 머리랑 다나는 있다다 참면 통수요래 무송을 송대들이 나만에 됐다 거야 요래 됐다 답에 때니 첫째 남들이 누구나 대들 연대도 요래 너게면 직자 요면 신기 요만이지 내가 막들이 됐다 차로 됐다 라면용띠 됐다 그러시나 됐다는 먹은 죽을 딱 주미 먹고래 될 라마 제마 다들은 남도 탐는가 됐다 다들이 이 순반들한 그 체진하기 도로요래 맨날 꾸신 오신을 잡아서 대파지다 직진사와 동송 mengaduga song de ba jin de ding ge kan de ni na to po na to tang de da ko mi la chang wo de pe na de ta wan to go yo de ti sa wa tong de che de ka chong chong le se de che shi yo ma le che so ma ke chong le de le de rang ji ge de to ni de de dang song de ta de sha yo le de ma sha ga ba de ni ta rang ni nam le na ni de wa 대화도 대외 좋다 대말죠 제가 운이 담치냐 하는 대화도 대 터버도 동네 무슨 터버도 저리 터버도 대야 저리 터버면 세 매돈 때문에 터버도 오, 백도도는 다른 게 루가가 같이 지내는 랑샘 동인을 돌토고요 말이. 대회들은 랑샘부터는 산속샘도 샘을 내오나 나디도 시오나 나디도 요로 가려고도 나디도 요나 이 직장 이거 말이 너게 강에 나오 놈아도 너도 참 들이들이 너희 청소 요나 들이들이 지고 쳔보 요리 마동도 때때면 차 들이라시자 말이. 삐감리들 랑게 강박 잘라 그래서 충성조나 랑게 강박도 찌찌르데 삐쳐버려 치고 차대래 오르 쳐버렸어 잘리티에서 그래도 강나 말이 충성마도 말이 대다원들이 오 센티 담실 때는 랑게 삐 충성 차로요 오 강양 말이 대다 하고 들이 습기는 이제 지나 들이랑게 충성을 챘어요 대다원 장마 들이다다 누구를 저거 타면은 대화다 대외 이제 산속샘들이 삼바다는 이제 동행에 끼와 탐색이 되는 게 대화다 대외 이제 대화 동생이 요하다게 산속샘과 가르는 동이 동생이 요하 좀 같은데 따따따는 그러면 동이 가르는 어때 라고 문제를 했던 차지 지냈더니 동이 강행 주고 요래 충격이 사악한 것을 강행 주나요 두개 꼴로 살로서는 고속하는 요 말이오 두개에서 지치에서 당들 레주제들은 저런 레주제들은 뜻성세죠. 뒤들어 답자죠. 말에 파면이 니노 바탕 니 피사서선 뒤로도 요 말이 대다가 답치지 용데 대다가 치나 들이 이제리들이요. 다들이 이 대통령도 사바도 들이다 답치를 이 대통령에서 왔는데 들이 대통령에 대바도 용을 들이 주민이 뭐지. 주민 뭐지. 주시 용들이 주민 뭐지. 들이랑 이제요. 데이터를 고고를 해야지.
And then Jigten Sumgen also spoke about the 4 kayas of the guru, and so we're speaking about the qualities of a guru. So we first need to understand the quality of a guru, of all the spiritual masters. And so first, we in the context of Guru Yoga, then we first understand through the Guru's instruction the 3 kayas of a Buddha's mind. And so then what the Guru has realized is within their own mind, they have realized that all beings possess that same mind, Buddha nature, and that when the dualistic grasping has become purified, then the mind itself becomes manifest as the 3 kayas. So the 3 kayas reveal themselves within the mind or the mind itself. And so how they manifest is that the empty essence of the mind is recognized as the Dharmakaya, the natural clarity of the mind as the Sambhogakaya, and the all-pervasive compassion as the Nirmanakaya. And this is how we are also introduced to the nature of Mahamudra, the mind that is Mahamudra. Also, Jigten Sumgen likens the Guru's 4 kayas to a snow mountain. So here we're speaking about the qualities of the 4 kayas. So we have mentioned the 3 kayas, and then the 4th kaya, which is the Svabhavika kaya, is that when you realize the nature of your own mind, you realize that your own mind is indivisible from the Guru's mind. And that realization in itself is called the 4th kaya. It's called kind of made a separate kaya. That is called the Svabhavika, or the essence kaya. So within that understanding that your mind is indivisible from the Guru's mind, from that arises devotion or uncontrived devotion. Milarepa also had said, aren't there many who possess the scriptures and the lineage, but the true ornament of a disciple is the uncontrived devotion. And so uncontrived devotion arises from the three kinds of faith. That is the clear faith, the the trusting faith, so the longing faith, and then the trusting faith. So from that arises devotion, and then ultimately the uncontrived devotion. So first, the faith that must arise is meaning that one must understand the quality of the qualities of the gurus and of the holy Dharma, and the suffering of samsara, and that there is a method to become liberated from that suffering, and that is only the holy Dharma. And when we understand that, then we begin to understand the qualities of all the spiritual masters. So the spiritual masters are those who have trained in previous lifetimes and now bring with them an imprint of bodhicitta into this lifetime. For example, now we speak about the tulkus, which is the Nirmanakaya. They appear in this human world, and already at a very young age, they possess many of the qualities of the holy Dharma. They abide within the three higher trainings and so on. So we generally call them a tulku and Nirmanakaya, an emanation. And so what they really are, the reason why we call them that is because they bring a continuum of bodhicitta with them from previous lives. And then in this life, they appear in all kinds of different forms. They take birth in various different bodies and all over the world in many different ways. So that is what we call a tulku of the three kayas. And so we said there's the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Dharmakaya. And so the Nirmanakaya is what we call tulku in Tibetan. And so in the context of Mahamudra, when it comes to recognizing the essence of Mahamudra, then there's also the fourth kaya, or the Svabhavika kaya. And in order to realize that, devotion or uncontrived devotion is essential. So we need to understand the qualities of those four kayas, or three kayas first, of the guru. Guru Rinpoche had said that when first of all, he said, when you hear the history, the story, then an inspiration arises in your mind. And when you understand the qualities, when you know the qualities, then faith arises in your mind. So we develop an inspiration when we hear the story, because when we hear the story about the masters who have already trained in previous lives and who bring this stream of bodhicitta with them into this life, then an inspiration arises within us. So what really makes them manifest in such a way so as to benefit sentient beings is the aspiration prayers that they have made throughout many previous lifetimes. Had they not made these aspiration prayers, and would they not have the karma, then all of this, there would be no Buddha appearing and turning the wheel of the Dharma and so forth. But the Buddha appeared and turned the wheel of the Dharma, and many of the various different kinds of teachers appeared, the teachers of the scriptures and on the experiential level and so on, and they all appear out of aspiration from previous lives. And they appear because sentient beings are suffering. And so actually, because what we call a tulku or Nirmanakaya is basically a form emanation, there are actually pure and impure form emanations, or tulkus or Nirmanakayas. So in that sense, we can say that actually all beings are tulkus in a way, because tulku or form emanation means that they are emanations of Buddha nature. All beings possess Buddha nature. But even though beings possess Buddha nature, temporarily they have not realized that. So temporarily, their mind is like a frozen ice block. And an ice block is by nature suffering, whereas the ocean water has no suffering. So the true nature of mind in its essence has no suffering. And all the thoughts and emotions and things that arise are just like snowflakes falling on water. They just dissolve into themselves as they touch the water. Meaning that those realized beings know that all of these appearances are not real. And that is actually explained extensively in the scriptures too. But from an experiential perspective, for example, in prison, when I was in prison, there were different kinds of individuals. For example, two people may have been together in the same situation, but their suffering was completely different. There were some in prison who were always happy and they always thought that this is nice, this is good. And then there were others who were so overwhelmed with misery that they even committed suicide. So the difference only lies in recognizing or not recognizing Buddha nature. And when one recognizes it, then one becomes just like these masters who see everything as a good thing. So then when you see these qualities, then you realize that this is how I can become liberated from suffering. I want to become free from suffering. And this state of mind is the level of the pratimoksha or individual liberation. But then finally you realize that for as long as I only wish for my own liberation from suffering, I will actually never become really liberated. In order to become liberated, I must give rise to an altruistic mind. So then secondly, one enters the bodhisattva path. One cultivates bodhicitta. And if one cultivates bodhicitta, finally one reaches the Vajrayana path, where one then realizes through bodhicitta that self and other are inseparable. And so in this way, one realizes the ultimate view as one progresses along the various bhumis and the paths. So when you see the qualities in the guru, then you recognize that, and it is from this guru that I can find the method to become free from suffering. So the guru, therefore, is the eyes for the blind and the heart for the heartless. And when you realize that, it does not just become a lip service, but it really comes from your own inner experience. So once one has gained an inner experience, one can say things like that. And then one can see that, for example, there is so much suffering in this world. One recognizes all the suffering in the world. For example, we can see how many people are committing suicide in the world. And the only way for them to become free from their misery is through the Holy Dharma ultimately. And so for that, first they have to understand the qualities of the Dharma, of the Guru. And when they see those qualities, faith arises in them. So also we have said when we hear the story, the history, an inspiration arises within us. Then as a result of that, a clear faith in the qualities of a Buddha, the three kayas and the Guru will arise within us. So when you have this wish of, I want to become free from suffering, that is the first kind of faith that arises within you. And then coming back to that quote, so when you see the qualities, faith arises, then the next line says, and when you become free of doubts, all intentions will become accomplished. So that means that as you engage in the practice of the path, you will become free of doubts. And when doubts disappear, your intentions will be accomplished. So in this way, therefore, the Dharma is your unfailing protection. So now when we speak about the qualities of the Guru possesses outer, inner, and secret qualities. And now this is really speaking from the perspective of secret qualities, is when you really realize that the Guru is the embodiment of the three kayas, or let's say that the three jewels, the three roots, and the three kayas. And if you think about this again and again, devotion arises within you. And eventually, uncontrived devotion arises within you. So then, whenever you encounter a Sangha member, you will immediately think that they are so precious because you have understood their qualities. And you have understood that it is these Sangha, or these spiritual masters, who open the doors of our mind, who open up our mind. And so I myself also, for instance, as a Sangha, then become liberated from suffering. And if I myself become liberated from suffering, I am able to show how to become liberated also to others. So understanding that is called devotion, and then we need to develop an uncontrived devotion. And that arises through practice. When you meditate and you come closer to the nature of the mind, you realize that your own mind, the essence of your own mind, and the Buddha's mind, and the mind of all sentient beings are actually connected. When you see the nature of your mind, then the concept of a self will go away. And then from that arises immeasurable compassion. And so first, you recognize that the first thing you realize is that your own mind is connected to the mind of all the Buddhas. And then from that, second, arises an immeasurable compassion for all sentient beings, as you realize that your mind is also connected to all sentient beings. And then ultimately you realize non-duality. And so this is really where this commitment that these great masters develop comes from this realization. They see that all sentient beings are actually nirmanakayas. They all possess Buddha nature. But they also are nirmanakayas in the sense of they are emanations of their own afflictions. For example, the beings in the three lower realms are emanations of stinginess, of hatred, and of jealousy. And then there are emanations of pride and so forth. So all the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara are like durgus, or emanations. This is also explained in the practice in the Vajrakilaya practice. So then when you understand that, you will come to a certainty, and you will realize that this has benefited me, and this will therefore also truly benefit others. If I eliminate one of my own afflictive emotions, then the afflictive emotions of sentient beings can be eliminated because our minds are connected. And so you realize that on the basis of realizing this Svabhavika Kaya and how your mind is connected to the Guru and therefore all sentient beings. And then from that arises the uncontrived devotion. Also, Milarepa had spoke on that all sentient beings really are inseparable from the mind of the Guru. And in one conversation he had with Gampopa asked him a question, and he asked, "So when is the time that I will benefit? When is my time to benefit sentient beings?" And Milarepa replied that for as long as you see me, your old father, as just that, then you have not yet reached the time to benefit beings. But when you see me, the Guru, as the actual Buddha, that is the time that's when the time has come for you to benefit sentient beings. So that story can also be found in Milarepa's life story. And these are his actual words that can still be seen or read today. So you should look at it and really meditate on it, practice with it. And so then someone who has actually really internalized this practice and feels that, of course, no one wants to suffer. All these sentient beings don't want to suffer. But then these poor things, and they don't know how to not suffer. And and in order not to suffer, they have to understand the qualities of what we just mentioned. And eventually, an uncontrived devotion has to arise within them. So for those masters who understand that, they see all samsaric appearance as illusory. All the thoughts and the afflictions and all these appearances that arise, they see them as illusory. And therefore, they do not experience, it does not affect them in one or the other way. Also, the omniscient Longchen Rabjam had said in the Mengakzöm, the treasury of pith instructions, that when true faith or when devotion arises, then the worldly affairs, the worldly activities become empty. And so what that means is for worldly activities to become empty is that when one realizes, when true uncontrived devotion arises, as before mentioned, then all these thoughts and afflictions and samsaric appearances that arise but are seen as nothing but illusions. Because one has realized that the mind itself is beyond birth and death, and that the next life is more important than this life. And they have realized that that karma, cause and effect, is the radiance or reflection of emptiness. And so until that realization arises, we follow the conventional or relative truth. And so here we have our prayer where we say, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So the slightest happiness arises from loving kindness. So when you realize this, when you realize karma, then you know that I can actually create my own happiness, and I can actually become free from suffering if I free myself of the causes of suffering. And ultimately, because I possess Buddha nature, I can become liberated from suffering. If one doesn't understand that, then no matter what one does with body and speech, no matter how hard one tries to bring about happiness, one cannot liberate oneself from mental suffering. The only way to become liberated from mental suffering is by giving rise to an altruistic mind, a mind of bodhicitta. And so thereby self-grasping disappears. And so then when self-grasping disappears, then you have gained an experience of, for example, when a slight difficulty arises in your own life, you will not regard it as something so heavy. Otherwise, if you don't understand that, if all there is just me, and you can't really think about others much, then even the smallest suffering becomes crushing and unbearable, and people often even commit suicide. For example, it is just like you have a mountain behind your house, and from your perspective at the house, it seems to be like a huge mountain because you're like under it. But then if you look at the mountain from a different angle, from a distance, it actually appears extremely small. And so similarly, when real compassion for sentient beings has arisen, then your own suffering will seem to be very insignificant, very small. And you will feel that it's nothing compared to the suffering of all other sentient beings. So then when real compassion for beings arises, you will be able to tolerate whatever suffering experience you go through. And also that is because you know that there is a method to become liberated from that suffering. So as we said in the prayer, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So you realize the cause of happiness is loving kindness and compassion in all lifetimes. Even the smallest, the slightest happiness that you experience is the kindness of bodhicitta. And even the slightest suffering that you experience is because of self-grasping. then when you understand that, you know that whatever suffering arises is due to karma and momentary conditions. Whatever difficulty it is, whether it is related to the Dharma or to your worldly life. But if you understand that, it will not appear as such a great difficulty because you trust in karma and you understand that that it is all my own karma ripening, and you're not crushed by it because you know that beings experience much more suffering. And so if you think in such a way, then you will not think, oh, this is so terrible. You will actually see it as a beneficial thing. And also you understand that if I practice the holy Dharma, then I can become free of suffering. And so this is how, through the practice of the holy Dharma, you become free of doubts. And when you become free of doubts, all intentions will become accomplished. And that is why it also says that, I supplicate elsewhere from within a doubtless, a mind that is free of any doubts. And the mind that is free of any doubts, from that mind arises the uncontrived devotion. And uncontrived means that it arises naturally on its own, and it is based on an understanding of the qualities of the Guru and of the Buddhas. So this is how we need to understand the uncontrived devotion.
그러다가 이 오늘 사자침보 기시시라고 대처men 리당의 아직까지 지보이도 추탐체제 유보 산촉센스 이 상하가 유보에 담들 라서 선합의 유보 라미무성 라마라 대바타면 무성 다들 선합의 유보 무지 선합지바 저하를 선합지바에 당서 벨렌스팅 호환에 집에 새로 초화주려고 그래. 초화가 나니 가와다 대화가 조지 초화를 내본 거요. 선합지바데. 대선함도 선함도 사도 자칫 선지 새로 초화 담을 내본 거래. 내가 체하게다 라서. 근데 저 라면 먹는데 선합이 행복하래 돼. 호화를 내버 생기 담질. 하여튼 저 찌아지고 조지금 또 찌아지고 조지 냠데 로마모마 체 냠든 체나 초화거래도 이 초화 대다서 상태가 초화래 상태가 초화 호화 상태 대제실 두대 따월라 들이 락바로 조지거래 이 평균 조타 조가 바른 데와 때려들이지려래 니 상태들 상바 체배 받았지 라니 메베들 상태도 초화를 내고 요래 그 강을 내고를 라만 내고래 라만 내고는 라마데 다 고꾸리게 뭐시 요래 다도 이시게 거니 대탐지 양도 제는 대시 초화까지 랩나 무슨 합이 몸을 라마리 샤지 들 라마지 초화 돌려도 가리 패게 라마데기 니메와 하고 동남대만 통고 요래 얘는 라마 최고 셈제와 차고 최고 있는 데와 차나 라미 대마 통들 랑가 대발레라고 통고 요래 대선 합이 행보 라미 먹어서 내게 쳐버리 행보 마서 내리들이 정적과 많이 봐 이제 추탐제 행보 저 뒤와 대도 하고 그러지.
So we've mentioned this is the name of this path is the fivefold path of Mahamudra, and Khenpo Sherab Ösam actually also gave it the name of the five essences, which was very actually kind of him because it really clarifies things. And it's in terms of essence, it is said the essence of the Dharma is the mind of bodhicitta, and the essence of the secret mantra is the yidam deity. The essence of blessings is guru devotion. So how is the essence of blessings guru devotion? So first we need to understand that from an ordinary worldly perspective, a samsaric perspective, the feeling that arises in our mind in an ordinary samsaric sense now. Now, there is this feeling often that arises of joy and of happiness, this feeling of warmth that arises in your mind. And that's really the experience of a blessing. That is when we say we have received a blessing. For example, also when you see a deity and you immediately feel this warmth and you feel, I want to take refuge in this deity, there's this initial feeling that arises instantly. And that also shows that this deity is your deity from previous lifetimes. And so now the essence of blessings is the guru devotion. So we need to understand that first from a samsaric perspective, the love that we have for one another in an ordinary worldly sense. For example, if you imagine you have a friend that you love very much and you haven't seen that friend for many years, and then you see them again, what kind of feeling arises in your mind? It is a very a feeling of warmth, and that is that feeling of love that arises in the mind. So that is the feeling that we take as the basis, the samsaric feeling of love, this warmth of love that arises in our mind when we love someone. And then an even greater love, an even greater warmth than that is the immeasurable love. So we take the love between friends, for example, as the basis, recognize that feeling of love, and then it becomes even greater. It becomes immeasurable love. And how does that arise? It must arise through the guru. As we mentioned before, it arises through understanding the qualities of the guru and developing the three kinds of faith in the guru. So then this feeling arises, and so that feeling is the essence of blessings. It is guru devotion, or the essence of blessings is guru devotion. And so how it really arises is because the guru has understood non-duality, and the guru has seen the ultimate truth. And then you connect your mind to the guru's mind. And since the guru has seen the ultimate truth, and you connect your mind to the guru's mind, it becomes very easy for you to also see the ultimate truth. And then that is how a true guru devotion arises, or we say this is how you then receive the blessings of the guru. So that's why the essence of blessings is guru devotion. And that's really important to understand. So we call this fivefold path also the five essences, because they are not only practiced in the Jigong Kagyu lineage, but they really are the essence of all the Dharma. Then Dharma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes.